The limousine glided past the gates of Kensington Estate, but Lila didn't look up from the window. She sat perfectly still, too still for a child. Her small fingers twisted the strap of her pink backpack again and again until her knuckles turned pale. "Miss Lila," the driver said gently, "we're almost at school." She didn't answer. She stared at the children outside the school gate, laughing, running, tossing their bags over their shoulders. A world she admired but did not feel part of. Inside her chest, a tightness grew. The kind that made your breath small. The kind that made your shadow feel bigger than you. "Do you want me to walk you to the door today?" the driver asked. Lila shook her head. Her voice came out in a whisper. "They'll see," he knew what she meant. The children had their own parents walking them and teachers, friends, chatter. But when Lila stepped out of the limousine, conversations paused. Eyes narrowed. Whispers floated. "There she is, the billionaire kid. Thinks she's better than us." They didn't know that every morning her stomach twisted in fear. They didn't know about the boys who cornered her last week behind the music block. The cruel joke. The shove. The words that stung, "Money can't save you. Go cry into your gold pillows." They didn't know that she hadn't slept well since. They didn't know that all she wanted was one normal day. The limousine rolled to a slow stop. Lila swallowed hard, clutching her backpack to her chest. Something inside her wanted to cry, but she didn't. She never did. Not in front of anyone. Her mother had once said kindness would always be louder than cruelty. But Lila hadn't found that to be true. Not yet. "Miss Lila," the driver said softly, "we're here." She stepped out, shoulders small, eyes down. The world felt too big. Too loud. Behind her, the limousine pulled away, leaving her alone at the curb. Again. The first roar of engines shook the ground behind Iron Wolf Diner. Ryder Hale leaned against his motorcycle, watching the steam rise from his morning coffee. Tattoos braided down his arms, leather clung to his frame, and the sun carved sharp shadows across his jaw. People saw a biker leader. They didn't see the man who cleaned up the alley every morning. Or the man who always left food outside the diner door for the homeless kid who slept nearby. Or the man who once had a daughter Lila's age before life twisted and took her away. "Boss," Trigger called, tossing Ryder a helmet, "you ridin' with us today or brooding until noon?" Ryder shrugged, pretending he didn't hear the teasing. He'd been quieter lately. Nights longer. Mornings heavier. "Let's ride," he said. Engines fired alive, loud, intimidating, beautiful. People across the street stared, pulling their children closer. Same reaction every day. Fear. Judgment. Stereotypes were heavy chains, Ryder had learned. And people rarely bothered to check if they were wrong. He swung onto his bike. The vibration of the engine steadied him. The road at least never judged. The gang rolled out onto the street, leather jackets flashing their emblem, a silver wolf head, jaws open. Cars gave them space. Pedestrians avoided their eyes. Ryder felt the distance between him and the world widen like a canyon. School had always been a battlefield for Lila, but today felt worse. At the fence, two girls stared at her shoes, whispering. "That's the pair that costs $1,000, one hissed. Lila's face warmed. She tugged her dress lower, wishing she could disappear. On the other side of town, Ryder and his men slowed at a traffic light near the school district. Kids crossing the road broke into nervous clusters at the sight of the bikes. Trigger chuckled. Another day terrifying the innocent. Ryder didn't laugh. His eyes lingered on the schoolyard, the children who ran without fear, without heaviness. Then he saw her. A tiny girl standing alone by the school fence, clutching her backpack, shoulders curved inward. She reminded him of something. Know someone. His breath caught. The bell rang. Children ran inside. Lila didn't move. Her heart pounded. Her hands shook. She hated how her body betrayed her fear. A teacher at the gate looked at her, sighed, and walked away. Lila felt the world tilt. The crowd thinned. Her safety vanished with the voices. She closed her eyes, whispering to no one. I just want to feel safe. When she opened them, her gaze drifted past the fence, toward the rumbling sound of motorcycle engines a block away. Dozens of bikers rode together, leather jackets shining, tattoos glinting in the sun. Everyone else saw danger. But Lila saw something else. Strength. Protection. People who walked fearless in a world that terrified her. And an idea sparked. A reckless, impossible idea. Ryder's bike idled at the red light. His gaze held on the little girl. Something about the way she stood, small, guarded, alone, pulled at a place inside him he had boarded up years ago. Trigger followed his gaze. What are you staring at? Ryder didn't answer. Because her eyes met his. Only for a second. A flicker of fear. A flicker of hope. A silent plea he recognized too well. And in that fragile moment, the edges of two separate worlds began to tilt toward one another. Lila stepped away from the school fence, heart pounding, gaze fixed on the distant bikers. Ryder gripped his handlebars tighter, unable to look away. The light turned green. But neither moved. For a brief, breathless heartbeat, the world held still. As if preparing them for something that would soon change both their lives. And shake the entire world. Lila didn't go inside the school. She stood at the edge of the walkway, her tiny hands pressed together, watching the bikers as they turned the corner. Their engines thundered through the morning air loud enough to scatter birds from the power lines above. But Lila didn't flinch. For the first time in a long while. She felt drawn toward something instead of running from it. A group of older students walked past her. Why are you just standing there? One boy scoffed. Another chuckled. Waiting for her private bodyguards. Princess can't walk alone. Their laughter stung like cold wind. Lila's eyes dropped, her breath shaky. Across the street, Ryder Hale watched the whole thing. Trigger nudged him. Boss, you good? You've been staring at that kid for. But Ryder didn't hear him. There was something about the girl. The way she held herself together even while breaking inside. The way she absorbed cruelty quietly instead of fighting back. It reminded him painfully of someone he once failed to protect. His daughter. Ella. A ghost of a memory pressed against his ribs. Ryder pulled his helmet off and exhaled hard. Pull over, he said. Trigger blinked. Pull over. Why? We're on a schedule. I said pull over. There was finality in Ryder's tone. The iron wolves slowed, engines purring like thunder as they parked along the sidewalk. Most of the morning crowd stared with wide, worried eyes. Mothers tugged their children away. Drivers locked their car doors. A teacher standing near the gate stiffened. Everyone assumed the worst. Except Lila. Her eyes glowed with something fragile. Hope. She took a step toward them. Then another. Her heartbeat thudded loudly in her ears. She felt it in her fingertips. Ryder saw her approach and slid off his bike, boots hitting the pavement with a low thud. He towered over her, leather jacket creaking as he crossed his arms. He didn't want to scare her. But he didn't know how to be gentle anymore. Lila stopped only 3 feet away, small chin lifted, voice barely above a whisper. Hello. Ryder blinked. Most kids ran from him. This one walked toward him with trembling hands and brave little eyes. What are you doing out here, kid? Ryder asked, voice low but not unkind. Lila's lips quivered before she got the words out. I don't want to walk into school alone today. Ryder frowned. Don't you have teachers inside? She shook her head. Not ones who stay. His chest tightened. She took a shaky breath, stepping closer. See, can I ask you something? Her voice wavered. Something important. Ryder lowered himself slowly to one knee so he could look her in the eyes. Yeah, he said gently. Ask. The rest of the biker gang fell silent. Even the engine seemed to hush. Lila swallowed hard. I get scared walking in, she whispered. And when the other kids look at me, it feels like my chest gets tight. Like something's hurting me but I can't see it. Ryder's jaw clenched. He knew that feeling too well. So. Lila nervously twisted the strap of her backpack, her small shoulders shaking. Could you? She paused, breath catching. Could you walk me to school? Just until I feel safe again. For a moment. For the smallest heartbeat. Ryder forgot how to breathe. Trigger whispered behind him, stunned, did that kid just ask us to walk her into school? But Ryder didn't look away from her. He saw the bruise hiding beneath her courage. He felt the weight of her trust. He sensed the deep, aching fear behind her small, trembling hands. And beneath all that, he saw Ella. Not her face, no. Her fear. The same way she used to clutch his jacket when she was scared of the dark. Ryder swallowed hard, blinking the memory away. Why us? He asked quietly. Lila looked down at her shoes, tears collecting like diamonds on her lashes. Because you look brave, she whispered. And I don't feel very brave today. Those words cracked something inside him. Not gently. Violently. Ryder slowly stood and turned to his gang. They all stared at the girl, this tiny stranger who just asked a crew of leather-clad bikers for protection like they were superheroes instead of society's misfits. No one laughed. No one joked. They all felt it. That spark. That shift in the air. Ryder turned back to her. Kid, he said, voice thickening despite himself, if walking you in makes you feel safe then yeah. We'll walk you. Lila's breath hitched. Her eyes widened, glimmering with hope. Really? Yeah, he said. Really. He extended his gloved hand, not touching her, just offering. Lila hesitated. Then placed her tiny hand into his large, rough one. The crowd froze. Parents stared. Teachers whispered. Cars slowed. No one understood what was happening. Except the two of them. Ryder gently closed his fingers around hers. It was a protective hold, soft, careful, full of unexpected warmth. Lila exhaled for the first time in days. Trigger revved his bike behind them and grinned. Boss, he said with a wink, looks like we got a new little wolf. For the first time in years, Ryder felt something loosen in his chest. Something like purpose. Something like redemption. He squeezed Lila's hand lightly. All right, he said. Let's get you to class. But neither of them knew. This moment would go viral. It would make global headlines. And it would change thousands of lives. This was the spark. And the world was about to burn with love. When Ryder walked Lila through the school gate, the world stopped. Teachers whispered. Parents stared. Students froze mid-step. A 7-year-old girl, holding hands with a tattooed biker leader. It didn't fit anyone's expectations. Or their comfort. As they neared the entrance, Lila's grip tightened. You okay? Ryder asked quietly. She nodded too quickly. Lying. Protecting herself. A habit he recognized in himself. When they reached the classroom door, Lila finally released his hand. Her palm felt cold when it left his. Thank you, she whispered, voice shaking. Ryder hesitated. He wanted to say something comforting, something a father might say. But he wasn't her father. And he wasn't supposed to care. So instead he grunted softly, "Stay safe, kid." Then he turned away. He didn't see the way her little face fell at the sudden distance. He didn't hear her whisper to herself, "I wish you didn't have to go." Trigger caught up to Ryder as they crossed the parking lot. "You okay, boss?" Ryder shoved his helmet on. "She's not our problem." Trigger raised a brow. "No. Then why'd you look like you were about to punch the air the moment you let go of her hand?" Ryder said nothing. He didn't want to admit what he felt. Protective. Angry on her behalf. Guilty he'd almost walked away before. "It was a one-time thing," Ryder muttered. Trigger smirked. "If you say so." But Ryder's silence said otherwise. The classroom buzzed with chatter as Lila took her seat, eyes fixed on her hands. A girl named Clara leaned over, smirking. "So, Lila, did you get dropped off by criminals today?" A few snickers followed. Lila's throat tightened. "They're not criminals," she whispered. Clara scoffed. "Sure. Next you'll tell us they're your friends." Lila looked down. I don't have friends." The room fell quiet for a second. Not out of sympathy. Out of cruelty. Clara whispered loudly, obviously. Lila swallowed hard, blinking back tears. She'd thought walking with Ryder would fix everything. She'd thought the fear would vanish. But fear didn't disappear in one morning. It clung to her. Even with the warmth of Ryder's hand still ghosting in hers. He tried to ride home. Tried to distract himself with engine noise. Tried to bury the memory of her trembling voice asking for help. But every time he blinked, he saw Ella. He finally growled and pulled over on a quiet backstreet. Trigger stopped beside him. "Boss, what's going on?" Ryder ripped off his helmet and slammed it against the handlebar. "She's 7, Trigger. 7. And she looks more scared than half the men we've fought." Trigger softened. Ryder never talked like this. "And the way those kids looked at her," Ryder muttered. "Like she's some kind of target." Trigger crossed his arms. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" "No." "Yeah, you are." "I said no." "You want to check on her after school?" Ryder clenched his jaw. His silence said everything. At lunch, Lila sat alone like always. Her food untouched. Her eyes on the door. She wasn't waiting for friends. She wasn't waiting for her driver. She was waiting for courage. Maybe the courage she'd felt that morning hadn't vanished. Maybe it just hid. She whispered into her little hands. "Please, please come back." Not to her mother. Not to her father. To the biker who looked at her like she mattered. At the office where her mother worked, a notification buzzed. A picture. Already posted online. Already spreading. Biker gang walks billionaire's daughter into school. A zoomed-in shot of Ryder holding Lila's hand. Her looking safe for the first time in months. Her mother stared at the screen, trembling. "Oh, Lila." The world was already reacting. Gasps. Praise. Judgment. People loved the innocence. Others hated it. Some called Ryder a hero. Others called him a threat. But none of them knew the truth. Lila had never looked more alive. Ryder stood across the street hours later, trying to convince himself he wasn't waiting. Trigger leaned on his bike, arms folded. "You're terrible at pretending you don't care." "Shut up." When the bell rang, kids rushed out in groups. Then Lila stepped outside. And froze. Her eyes moved through the crowd until she found him. Her face lit up so quickly, Ryder felt something shift in his chest. But then she hesitated. Her smile faded. She looked down at her shoes. She was resisting too. Maybe he's busy. Maybe he didn't come for me. Maybe I'm being annoying. Ryder knew that posture. He'd worn it most of his life. He crossed the street. Lila looked up, hope flickering. You came, she whispered. Ryder shrugged roughly. Figured you might need backup. She tried not to smile. Failed. I did. A pause. Then Ryder asked softly. Did they bother you again today? Lila stared at the ground. Not when you're here. Ryder swallowed hard. Something inside him, something old, broken, rusted, shifted painfully toward life. Well, he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck, that's good. Silence lingered. But it wasn't awkward. It was recognition. Two lonely hearts learning the shape of each other. Finally Lila whispered. Will you walk me again tomorrow? Ryder should have said no. Should have protected his distance. Should have shut the door before it opened too wide. Instead, he heard himself say. Yeah, kid. I'll be here. Her breath caught relief flooding her small shoulders. And just like that. Resistance melted. For both of them. But neither knew the storm about to come. Because tomorrow. Cameras would appear. Headlines would explode. And the world would turn their bond into a battlefield. The next morning, riders from the Iron Wolves began arriving earlier than usual. They told themselves they were just passing by. Just curious. Just watching out for trouble. But the truth was simple. They wanted to see her again. The kid who wasn't afraid of them. The kid who trusted them. Ryder showed up last, though he'd been awake since dawn. He told himself he shouldn't go. He wasn't good for kids. He wasn't safe for anyone. But somehow, every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lila's tiny hand gripping his, as if he were the only safe place in her world. So he came. Lila sat on the edge of her enormous bed, silk sheets, velvet pillows, the kind of luxury adults dream about. None of it made her feel safe. Her mother peeked inside. Sweetheart, she said gently, is it true, you walked into school with bikers yesterday? Lila nodded slowly. Her mother sat beside her. Why, baby? Lila hesitated, searching for the truth that lived under her ribs. Because, they made me feel safe. Her mother's eyes softened, worry mixed with a strange, unexpected relief. Do you want me to talk to your school about what's been happening? Lila shook her head quickly. No. They'll make it worse. A tear slipped down her cheek so quietly her mother almost missed it. And that didn't sit well. Not at all. She wiped Lila's cheek and whispered. Then maybe the bikers aren't the problem. Maybe they're the answer. At the curb, Ryder leaned against his bike, arms folded, expression hard as stone. But the moment he saw Lila stepping out of the limousine, something unbreakable inside him softened. She paused, saw him, and her whole face lit up with a small, trembling smile, the kind a lonely child gives to the first person who ever protected them. Morning, she said, pushing her glasses up nervously. Morning, kid, he replied, voice rougher than he intended. The Iron Wolves watched the interaction like proud uncles. Trigger whispered. I swear, she's turning him soft. Ryder tossed a glare over his shoulder. I heard that. But he didn't deny it. Today, Lila didn't just walk between Ryder and Trigger. She walked with them, three people from three different worlds suddenly walking the same path. And the world noticed. Parents pulled out phones. Teachers froze at the entrance. Students whispered like bees in a hive. It wasn't just protection anymore. It was a statement. A bond. A promise. As they neared the entrance, Lila quietly reached out, not for Ryder's hand this time, but for his sleeve. Just a small tug. A silent plea. Stay a little longer. He looked down at her. And for the first time since losing Ella, somebody's eyes made him feel needed. He crouched to her level. What's wrong? She looked around at the staring faces and leaned closer. I wish you didn't have to go when I walk inside. Ryder's breath hitched. Because he wished that, too. He gently tugged a loose strand of her hair behind her ear, a fatherly gesture he didn't mean to make. Tell you what, he said softly. We'll wait right here until you're in your classroom. You look back, you'll still see us. Deal? Lila nodded, eyes shining. Deal. She walked inside slowly, turning every few seconds to make sure they were still there. And every time she looked back, Ryder raised 2 fingers in a small, steady salute. I'm here. She smiled before slipping inside her classroom. The moment she disappeared behind the door, 3 teachers hurried toward Ryder and the gang. One cleared her throat. This is highly inappropriate. Ryder stared at her calmly. The kid asked us for help. Well, that's unacceptable. This is a school, not a biker convention. Trigger muttered under his breath, Lady, relax, nobody's revving engines in your lobby. Another teacher stepped forward. You could frighten the children. Ryder leaned in just enough to make her swallow nervously. Frighten, he repeated. Funny. That kid was terrified before we showed up. Their silence revealed everything. They didn't know. They didn't see. A final voice joined, soft but firm. Lila's mother. She approached in heels and grace, but her eyes held the storm of a mother whose child has been hurting for too long. Is there a reason, she asked the teachers, that a group of strangers knows my daughter is scared? And none of you bothered to notice? The teachers paled. Ryder stepped aside respectfully. Her mother extended a hand toward him. You must be Ryder. He blinked. Shocked. She continued. Lila told me she feels safe with you. That means something to me. Ryder cleared his throat. We're just looking out for her. No, she said quietly. You saw her. Her voice trembled. And that makes you the first adults who have. Ryder didn't know what to say. For the first time in years. He felt proud. Needed. Good. When Lila walked out after school and saw Ryder waiting again, she ran, not walked toward him. He wasn't expecting it. He wasn't prepared for her small arms wrapping tightly around his waist. Or for the way her voice broke against his jacket. Thank you for not leaving. Ryder froze. Then slowly placed a hand on her back. Subtle. Protective. Full of everything he didn't say. You don't have to thank me, kid, he murmured. I'm here. Trigger sniffed dramatically. Look at you, boss. Dad mode activated. The gang laughed. Lila giggled. And someone across the street snapped a picture. A picture that would explode across the internet within hours. A biker leader hugging a billionaire's daughter like she was the most precious thing in the world. Good. Bad. Judgment. Praise. The battle lines were drawn. And this bond? It was no longer private. It was global. That night, when Ryder finally returned to his apartment, he sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his hands. Hands that once lost Ella. Hands that now protected Lila. He whispered into the quiet. What are you doing to me, kid? He didn't know the answer yet. But she did. All Lila knew was simple. She wasn't alone anymore. And for the first time in her life, she slept without fear. Morning sunlight spilled across the school sidewalk, warm and gentle, but Lila didn't feel it. Not today. She stood beside Ryder's motorcycle, shoes scuffing the concrete, hands twisting nervously. She kept looking over her shoulder. Every shadow made her flinch. "Kid," Ryder said, crouching down, "what's going on?" Lila swallowed softly and stepped closer, her voice trembling. They put something in my locker yesterday." Ryder's eyes hardened. "What did they put?" Lila hesitated, then whispered, "A picture of me with red marks drawn on it." He felt heat rise behind his eyes, not anger at her, but anger for her. "Who did it?" She shook her head quickly, terrified. "I don't want to get anyone in trouble." Ryder exhaled slowly. "Lila, getting hurt isn't trouble. Not for you." She bit her lip. "I'm scared." The words were tiny, but they carried the weight of her whole world. Ryder gently placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture he had avoided before. "I won't let anything happen to you," he said softly. "Ever." She held his gaze like those words were the first safe thing she'd heard in years. Later that morning, a teacher, Mrs. Rowan, opened Lila's locker to put a book inside. She froze. Inside was a photo of Lila. Someone had drawn a target over her chest in red marker. And beneath it, written in harsh, uneven letters, "Money won't save you." Mrs. Rowan clapped her hand over her mouth. This wasn't bullying. This was cruelty. And it was escalating. She hurried to the office, trembling. But while she was gone, another person uncovered truth. Lila's mother. She arrived early to surprise her daughter with lunch, and walking past the lockers she noticed a crumpled sheet on the floor. She picked it up. It was another picture of Lila. With the same target drawn over her chest. Her hand shook until the paper fell to the floor. "Oh my God, my baby." She rushed outside, breath uneven, tears streaking her cheeks, and found Ryder and the gang waiting for dismissal. Ryder stood up immediately. "Where's Lila? Is she okay?" Her mother held the crushed paper in shaky fingers. Ryder took one look at it. And his entire body went rigid. Trigger cursed under his breath. "Hale," growled another biker, "we're not letting this slide." But Ryder wasn't listening. He was staring at the paper, his jaw clenching until a vein twisted near his temple. He had seen this before. A drawing. A threat. A warning. A memory pressed into him like a blade, his daughter Ella hiding a note she'd gotten at school. His failure to notice. His failure to protect her. He swallowed the pain and looked at Lila's mother. "Tell me everything," he said, voice trembling with barely contained emotion. She explained, voice cracking, hands shaking. "I thought she was just shy. I didn't know it was this bad." Ryder's eyes softened. "Kids hide pain better than adults," he said quietly. "They're scared it'll disappoint someone." Her breath hitched. "Is that true for Lila?" Ryder nodded. "Yeah. She's stronger than she knows. But she's also hurting more than she says." Her mother covered her mouth, tears falling. "I never noticed." Ryder placed a gentle hand on her arm, surprising both of them. "You're noticing now," he said softly. "That means everything." Later that afternoon, Lila's mother searched her daughter's room looking for answers. Not out of mistrust. Out of desperation. Inside Lila's desk drawer, beneath a stack of drawings, she found a small diary with a glittery silver lock. The key was taped to the back. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The first page was innocent drawings of stars, hearts, and her favorite animals. The second page wasn't. "I don't like school. I pretend to. But I'm scared every day." Her mother's breath broke into pieces. She flipped another page. "They say I'm a stranger. They say I don't belong. I wish someone would stay with me." Her tears smeared the ink. But the next line stopped her heart. Today I met a man with kind eyes. He looks scary but he's not. I think he knows what scared feels like too. She pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed. Lila had been drowning alone. Until Ryder. That evening, Ryder sat in the garage alone. The others gave him space. They recognized the storm brewing inside him. He pulled out a small, worn leather box from the saddlebag of his bike. Inside it, a pink bracelet. A tiny drawing of a wolf, a photo of a smiling little girl missing her two front teeth. Ella. He hadn't opened this box in years. Hadn't allowed himself to. But today, the past felt alive again. He pressed a hand to his eyes, breathing hard, voice cracking. Ella. I'm sorry, he whispered. I wasn't there when you needed me. Silence filled the room. Ryder shook as memories clawed his chest of warning signs he missed, of people who hurt his daughter, of the day she was taken from him too soon. Then he whispered. But I won't fail Lila. Not again. Not ever. A tear slipped down his face. And for the first time, his pain wasn't suffocating. It was transforming. Into purpose. Into protection. Into redemption. That night, Lila's mother waited outside the garage until Ryder emerged. She held the diary pressed to her chest. When Ryder saw her, he froze. Her eyes were red. Her voice trembled. Ryder, please help us. Help her. He nodded once, slowly. We're not going anywhere. A tear rolled down her cheek. Thank you. Ryder stepped closer, voice soft and full of a promise that came from the deepest wound he carried. She's not just your daughter anymore, he said quietly. She's ours to protect. The next morning, Lila waited at the window before dawn, her tiny hands pressed against the cold glass. She counted every second until she saw the familiar shape of Ryder's motorcycle turning onto her street. The engine rumbled softly in the distance, and for the first time in her life, the sound of something loud made her feel calm. She ran downstairs, nearly tripping over her backpack strap, and burst out the front door. Ryder slid off his bike, surprised. You're early, kid, he said with a smirk. Lila's cheeks flushed. I didn't want you waiting alone. Ryder blinked, a pause that said more than words ever could. Then, he said gently, I guess we're both early. Because the school had officially approved Ryder standing at the gate, the wolves didn't technically need to escort her. But today, something felt different. Trigger elbowed Ryder. Why don't you walk her the long way today? You know, give the kid some peace. Ryder raised an eyebrow. Long way. Why? Trigger winked. Because she smiles more when she's with you. Lila's eyes widened. Ryder's ears turned slightly red. I'm not making her smile, Ryder grumbled. Lila tugged on his jacket lightly. Yes, you are. His chest tightened. All right, he muttered, let's walk. They took the quieter side street, no staring parents, no teachers, no crowds. Just two people learning to breathe again. As they walked, Lila studied Ryder's tattoos with childlike curiosity. What's that one? She asked, pointing at a wolf inked across his forearm. Ryder hesitated, tracing a thumb over the symbol. It was my daughter's favorite animal. Lila's steps slowed. Your daughter? Ryder looked away. Her name was Ella. Lila was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, she whispered. Ryder swallowed hard. It's not your job to be sorry, kid. She gently slipped her hand into his, not seeking protection this time, but giving comfort. Ryder stiffened at first, then slowly let himself feel the warmth of her tiny fingers. Thank you, he murmured. You miss her, Lila said softly. I can tell. Your heart feels sad. Ryder let out a shaky breath. Yeah. It does. Lila squeezed his hand. My heart feels sad too sometimes, she whispered. But it feels warmer when you're here. Something inside Ryder long frozen melted. When they reached the school, the entire Iron Wolves gang stood waiting like proud uncles in mismatched leather. Morning, little wolf. Trigger greeted with exaggerated cheer. Lila giggled a sound that made grown men smile without knowing why. Ryder shook his head. You're all ridiculous. Maybe, Trigger said, but we're family ridiculous. Lila tilted her head. Family? Ryder froze. The wolves exchanged glances. Trigger crouched to her height. If you want us to be family, we can be. Lila's eyes shimmered as she looked at Ryder. Can you? His throat tightened. He didn't trust his voice, so he just nodded. Lila leaped forward and hugged Trigger, who instantly melted. Oh no, one biker teased, looks like she's adopted Trigger first. Trigger puffed his chest. As she should. I'm the fun uncle. Lila ran back to Ryder and tugged his sleeve. And you're, the protector. Ryder nearly choked. That so? He whispered. She nodded shyly. Yes. Ryder walked her to the door as usual, but today Lila did something she had never dared to do. She turned back, stepped toward him, and said. Can you bend down? Ryder knelt, heart pounding for reasons he didn't understand. She leaned in. And placed a tiny kiss on his cheek. For luck, she whispered. Ryder froze completely. Trigger fist pumped behind him. A biker named Blade wiped away a suspicious tear. Ryder cleared his throat, voice cracking. All right, kid. Go learn something before you turn me into a puddle. She giggled and ran inside, turning twice to wave. Ryder watched her until she disappeared not out of duty, but out of something far deeper. That afternoon, Lila came out holding something behind her back. What you got there? Ryder asked. A shy smile spread across her tiny face. She handed him a drawing. It was of the Iron Wolves, all of them standing around her like guardians. At the center was Ryder, taller, strong, but drawn with a tiny heart on his chest. Under it she had written. My safe place. Ryder's voice failed him. Trigger whispered to the others, oh, we're done for. She owns us now. Ryder lifted Lila gently and set her on his bike seat, something he'd never allowed anyone to do since Ella. You drew us perfect, he said softly. Especially the heart. That's because you have one, she whispered. He almost broke right there. Before she left, Lila tugged Ryder's jacket again. Ryder, she said softly. Yeah, kid. She looked up at him with trusting eyes that made him feel human again. Do you think? I can't be scared anymore. He knelt in front of her. I think being scared means you're still fighting, he said gently. And I think you're the bravest kid I've ever met. Lila pressed her forehead to his. And you're the bravest grown-up I know. Ryder's eyes closed. He whispered. Kid, you're healing stuff in me I didn't know could be healed. She smiled. You too. When Ryder watched Lila climb into her mother's car, something became clear. He wasn't protecting her out of guilt. Not anymore. He loved her. Not as a daughter he lost. But as a daughter he'd been given. And Lila? She now had a protector, a friend, and a family bigger than her fears. For the first time in both of their lives. They weren't broken alone. They were healing together. The morning started like any other quiet street, soft engine rumble, the wolves lined up like loyal guardians. But Ryder felt something off. The air was too still. The road too quiet. His instincts honed from years of danger buzzed under his skin. When the Kensington limousine stopped, Lila stepped out wearing a small smile. But there was a heaviness in her eyes Ryder recognized instantly. He knelt down. Hey, he murmured. You all right? She nodded, but her chin trembled before she could hide it. Ryder's brows pulled together. What happened? Lila opened her mouth. And the click of dozens of cameras cut her off. Paparazzi. Journalists. Bloggers. News vans. They swarmed the sidewalk like a tidal wave. There. Get the biker with the girl. Look at that, he's touching her shoulder. Is he manipulating her? Is he using her for publicity? Why is a billionaire's child with a gang leader? Ryder froze. Lila flinched and grabbed his sleeve, terrified. He pulled her behind him, shielding her instinctively. Back off. Ryder barked. You're scaring her. Flashbulbs exploded. Microphones shoved forward. Voices rose like a storm. Lila sobbed, clinging to him. Ryder. I don't like this, I know, baby girl, I know, just stay behind me. The wolves spread out around them, forming a protective circle. Trigger pushed back a man who got too close. She's 7, you vultures. Step back. But the cameras only clicked faster. Lila's mother rushed forward, shoving through the crowd. Stop filming my daughter. No one listened. Not one person. A reporter shoved a mic in Ryder's face. Sir, are you using this child to repair your gang's criminal reputation? Ryder snapped, we ain't criminals, and she ain't a prop. Click. They caught the moment his face twisted in anger. The exact moment Lila hid behind his leg. The exact moment the wolves stepped forward aggressively. The headline was already being imagined. Biker gang intimidates reporter's child in crossfire. Lila's mother finally reached them, breathless and panicked. Ryder, take your hands off her just for a moment. Ryder froze. Her tone wasn't angry. It was terrified. I'm not hurting her, he said, stunned. I know, she whispered. But the cameras, they're twisting everything. Lila clung tighter. But security guards rushed in, trying to pry her away for her safety. Lila screamed. No. Don't take me away from him. Her mother pressed a hand to her mouth, heartbreaking. And then a camera caught the exact frame of Ryder reaching out to grab Lila's arm as she was pulled away. Not gently. Not softly. Just desperately. Instantly misinterpreted. Flashes erupted like lightning. Reporters shouted, is he grabbing her? Is he refusing to let her go? Is this a kidnapping attempt? The wolves roared in anger, stepping in to defend Ryder, but their aggression only fueled the cameras. The lie was already born. Lila was still screaming. Her mother was crying, the crowd was panicking. And Ryder looked like he'd been kicked in the chest. Lila, he called. It's okay. I'm not leaving you. I'm right here. Security held her back. She reached for him, sobbing with everything she had. Ryder, don't go. Every shout slammed into him like a hammer. But her mother pulled her into her arms, shielding her from the chaos. Lila, baby, we need to go. No. Let me go to him. Sweetheart, please. And Ryder. He stepped back. Not because he wanted to. Because he had to. Because in that moment, every camera, every voice, every twist of the truth made him look like a danger instead of a protector. Lila saw him step back and gasped as if her heart had been ripped open. Ryder. Why are you walking away? Ryder's voice cracked. I'm not walking away. But he was. He had to. Trigger grabbed his shoulder. Boss, you staying will make it worse. For her. For all of us. Ryder stared at Lila. Her tiny hands reaching. Her eyes swimming with betrayal. Her sobs splitting the morning open. He swallowed the shatter in his chest. Then turned. Forced himself to walk away. Lila screamed after him. You promised you'd never leave. The words hit him like bullets. His voice broke. I'm sorry, kid. He didn't look back. If he did, he'd run to her. Fight everyone. Hold her until the world disappeared. He couldn't. He walked until her cries were just echoes behind him. Lila's mother held her tightly as the little girl sobbed into her dress. He didn't want to leave, her mother whispered. He was trying to protect you from them. But, he promised, Lila cried. He promised I wouldn't be alone. You're not alone, her mother whispered. I'm here. But Lila shook her head violently. It's not the same, she sobbed. He makes me brave. And then her voice crumbled. He makes me feel loved. Her mother's heart cracked clean in half. Ryder walked until he couldn't feel his legs. Then he stumbled behind a row of bikes behind the diner and dropped to his knees. Trigger approached quietly. Boss. Ryder pressed a hand to his face. His breath shattered. His voice broke open. I told her I'd be there, he choked out. And I walked away. I walked away again. You didn't have a choice, Trigger said gently. Ryder slammed a fist into the pavement. She thinks I left her. She thinks I didn't want her. Just like Ella thought that night, his voice collapsed into silence. Trigger knelt beside him. You didn't fail her, he whispered. Not today. Not then. Not now. You were protecting her today, Ryder. But protection sometimes looks like distance. Ryder didn't respond. Because the wound was too fresh. Because losing Lila even for a moment felt like losing Ella all over again. By noon, headlines flooded every screen. Biker snatches child back from security. Is the billionaire's daughter safe? Gang leader involved in school altercation. People judged. Commented. Speculated. Lied. Ryder stared at the screen, numb. They twisted everything, he whispered. Trigger nodded bitterly. They always do. Ryder closed his eyes, pain slicing through him. I can't go near her now. Not without making her life worse. Lila went to sleep that night with tear-stained cheeks. Ryder didn't sleep at all. 2 hearts. 2 wounds. 2 worlds torn apart. This was the shatter point. But it wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the choice. Night fell heavy. Lila lay curled on her bed, wrapped in a blanket that felt too big and too cold. The golden fairy lights above her did nothing to soften the ache inside her chest. She held Ryder's drawing to her heart, the one she made of the wolves protecting her. Her tears stained the edges. He left, she whispered into the quiet room. He left me, like everyone else. But her voice wavered. Because another truth whispered back, he didn't want to go. She could still see it the way Ryder looked at her when the cameras pressed in. Pain pouring out of him. Fear for her. A silent apology. Her mother sat at the edge of the bed. Sweetheart. Ryder didn't abandon you. Lila wiped her cheeks. But he walked away. Her mother gently stroked her hair. Sometimes, she said softly, protecting someone means stepping back. A tear slipped down her cheek. And sometimes, it hurts both people. Lila clutched the drawing tighter. I miss him, Mommy. Her mother kissed her forehead. Then you have a choice, baby, she whispered. Stay hurt, or reach for the person who made you feel safe. Lila's breath shook. In that moment, a tiny spark of courage flickered inside her. I want to reach for him, she whispered. I want him to know. I still choose him. Her mother smiled, proud and aching. Then tomorrow, she said, you and I go find him. Ryder sat in the garage alone, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. The wolves stayed nearby but gave him distance. They knew he was breaking. He hadn't moved in hours. Trigger finally stepped inside. Boss, you haven't spoken all day. Ryder didn't look up. Trigger knelt beside him. Talk to me. Ryder's voice cracked open. She cried for me, Trigger, and I walked away. You saved her, Trigger said firmly. Ryder shook his head violently. I saw her face. She thought I left because I didn't want her. His voice dropped into a whisper broken by grief. Ella thought the same thing once. Trigger's breath hitched. Ryder's eyes watered, something the men had never witnessed. I can't break another kid, he whispered. I can't fail again. You didn't fail. She doesn't know that. His voice shook. She thinks I chose to leave. Trigger placed a hand on his shoulder. Then you have a choice too, Ryder. Ryder frowned. Choice. Trigger nodded. You can keep running from what you lost, or you can choose the kid who's still here. Ryder looked at the leather box containing Ella's bracelet and drawing. Then he whispered, one, I don't know how to be good for her. Trigger squeezed his shoulder. You already are. You just need to believe it. Ryder's jaw trembled. Then tomorrow. I'll talk to her. Trigger exhaled, relieved. Good. Because she's hurting too. Ryder nodded slowly. I'll fix this. I have to. But he didn't know yet. Lila was already coming to find him. Lila woke up with a decision carved deep into her little heart. She wore her favorite yellow dress, the one Ryder once said made her look sunny. She tucked the drawing into her backpack. She squeezed her mother's hand and whispered. Let's go. Ryder paced outside the garage, boots hitting the concrete, heart pounding. He looked like a warrior headed into battle, but inside, he was terrified. Trigger leaned against a bike, arms crossed, watching him. You've rehearsed your apology 11 times, Trigger said. You sure you want to go with version 12? Ryder glared at him. Trigger smirked. What? Version 12 has less crying. Ryder shoved him lightly. Shut up. But Trigger noticed something important. Ryder wasn't running anymore. He was walking toward the thing that scared him most, losing love again. The Kensington limo drove toward the Iron Wolves garage. Ryder walked out the same moment they turned onto the street. He froze. Lila froze. Her tiny face pressed against the window, eyes wide, full of trembling hope. Ryder's heart slammed into his ribs. The car hadn't even stopped before Lila threw open the door and ran toward him, tears already spilling, breath breaking. Ryder took 3 steps forward. She collided into him with all the force her small body could carry, burying her face into his jacket. Don't leave again, she sobbed. Please, please don't leave again. Ryder dropped to his knees and wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly, fiercely, protectively. His voice cracked apart. I'm sorry, kid. I'm so sorry. I never wanted to leave you. Never. She clung to him. Then don't. Ryder pressed his forehead to hers. I won't, he whispered. I promise you. I won't walk away again, not unless you tell me to. She shook her head quickly. I'll never tell you to. Ryder kissed the top of her head, gentle, fatherly, reverent. You saved me, kid, he whispered. You have no idea how much. Lila pulled back slightly, sniffing. And you saved me too. Ryder wiped her tears with the edge of his thumb. I choose you, Lila, he whispered. Every time. I choose you. Her lips trembled. I choose you too, Ryder. Behind them, the wolves looked away, half smiling, half teary-eyed, trying to pretend they weren't emotional grown men watching the most beautiful reunion of their lives. Trigger finally muttered. "Okay, now that's enough feelings. I'm gonna cry in my helmet." Lila giggled. Ryder chuckled, the first real laugh he'd had in years. And in that moment, they both made their choice. Love over fear. Family over loneliness. Courage over pain. The next week was unlike anything the Kensington estate had ever seen. News vans still gathered outside, but something had changed. They weren't hunting scandal. They were searching for a story the world had fallen in love with. The little girl who felt safe for the first time. And the biker who became her hero. Lila's mother stood before the cameras, hands steady, voice firm. "My daughter was suffering in silence. The bikers did not scare her. They protected her. And we are standing with them publicly, proudly." Behind her, the Iron Wolves stood in a clean formation, leather jackets polished, helmets off, hands folded. And beside Ryder, holding his hand like she had since day one, stood Lila, head high, smile soft, heart steady. For once, the world saw what was real. Not the tattoos. Not the stereotypes. Not the noise. They saw a man and a child who had saved each other. The school principal approached Lila with a regret so heavy it dimmed her eyes. "Lila. I am deeply sorry for not seeing your pain." Lila held on to Ryder's hand, not letting go. Her mother spoke gently. "We want accountability, not excuses." The principal nodded. "The students who targeted Lila will be suspended. Counseling programs will be implemented. And Lila will be given a personal support team." Ryder's jaw clenched, but he nodded once. "Good," he said quietly. "Make sure no kid goes through what she did." Lila looked up at him, the protector she trusted more than anyone, and whispered. "You made them listen." Ryder squeezed her hand gently. "You made me try." That afternoon, the Wolves, Lila, and her mother walked to the garage for something important. Trigger held a wrapped box with a grin. "All right, little wolf, open it." Lila tore the wrapping carefully and gasped. It was a mini leather jacket. Black. Soft. Perfectly her size. On the back, embroidered in silver thread. "Little Wolf Iron Wolves MC." Lila's eyes filled with tears. "For me." Ryder knelt and zipped the jacket on her. "Yeah," he whispered. "Because you're family now." She threw her arms around his neck, burying her face into his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for choosing me." Ryder hugged her back tightly, voice low and emotional. "You didn't give me a choice, kid. You walked right into my life." Trigger sniffed loudly. "I'm not crying. My allergies are acting up." The other wolves nodded, wiping tears dramatically. Lila giggled, healing in her laughter. A week later, the wolves suggested something bold. A unity ride. Not loud. Not aggressive. Not rebellious. A gentle, slow parade through the city to raise awareness for bullied children. Ryder placed a custom helmet on Lila's head, white with a silver wolf painted on the side. "Ready, kid?" he asked. Lila nodded, glowing. "You won't let go?" "Never," Ryder murmured. She climbed onto the seat in front of him. He wrapped a protective arm around her. The wolves lined up behind them. Crowds gathered on sidewalks, not to fear, but to cheer. Parents held signs, "Every child deserves safety. Love has no stereotype." And as the wolves rode slowly down the street, Lila lifted her arms slightly, feeling the wind, smiling bigger than she ever had. Ryder leaned down and whispered, "You look happy." She tilted her head back. "I am." The next day, Ryder walked Lila to school again, just like the first time. The world watched. Students whispered. Teachers stepped aside respectfully. But something was different. Lila wasn't hiding behind him. She walked beside him chin up, tiny leather jacket shining in the sun, confidence radiating from her small frame. Halfway to the door, Lila reached out her hand just like in Act 2. But this time Ryder didn't hesitate. He took her hand immediately, giving it a gentle, steady squeeze. The same gesture that changed everything the first time. Lila looked up at him. "I'm not scared anymore." Ryder felt emotion swell in his throat. "That's because you're strong," he said softly. Lila shook her head. "It's because I'm not alone." Ryder knelt, his voice thick. "And you never will be again." She kissed his cheek. "For luck." He chuckled. "For luck." After school, Ryder, Lila, and her mother met at the park, a peaceful place where children played without fear. Lila sat between Ryder and her mother, drawing in her sketchbook. When she finished, she shyly turned it around. It was a picture of the three of them. Lila, Ryder, her mother, all holding hands. Under it she wrote, "My family." Her mother covered her mouth, emotional. Ryder swallowed hard, blinking rapidly. "You drew that?" he whispered. Lila nodded proudly. "Because that's what we are now." Her mother took Ryder's hand, a soft, grateful gesture. "Thank you for loving her," she said softly. Ryder's voice broke. "She saved me as much as I saved her." Lila leaned against him, eyes sleepy but peaceful. "Ryder," she whispered. "Yeah, kid? Do you think happy endings are real?" He wrapped an arm around her. "They are," he whispered. "When you fight for them." Lila smiled and closed her eyes. And in the golden quiet of the afternoon, three souls, once broken, now complete, held on to each other as family. A biker who lost a daughter. A child who never felt safe. A mother who searched for kindness. Love found them. Unexpected. Beautiful. Unshakable. And so the world learned that a biker gang and a billionaire's daughter could change each other's lives. Not with fear. But with love. Love at last. Love unexpected. Love chosen. And that is the true ending.